Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever everyone's calling in from. We're all over the world. Howdy. Today I'm joined by our co-founders, Henry and Patrick. We're going to be talking a little about what's new at Reclaim, doing a little demo, talking about what's coming up next, and hopefully answering all of your amazing questions. This is, your session, so drop those in. We have the Q&A open. I'll be monitoring it. If we don't get to your question right away, we're probably waiting for an opportune moment to plug it in. So I do have my eye on that. All questions, the floor is open. I'm going to hand it over to Patrick to kick us off. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. So excited.
I'm going to start, though, by doing a quick demo of sort of several capabilities of Reclaim that all kind of work together as a bit of inspiration, hopefully for you, on how to think about how Reclaim can be best configured to work for you, and how the features complement each other and work together. Then we will pivot into some more advanced use cases. Henry's going to speak a little bit to some of our impending roadmap items that are landing in hopefully the next 30 to 60 days. And maybe if we have time, we might do a high-risk live demo of some stuff we're working on now, but we'll see if we can get to that. All right, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. One moment. Okay. So most of you who attend these webinars are usually pretty familiar with Reclaim, although we know some of you might have found us like earlier today or yesterday, and that's fine. I think this will be applicable to most of you, and is a great, like I said, a great example of how to blend all these things together. So I want to orient ourselves first. I'm through the onboarding, but I don't have a lot going on with this calendar or a lot of advanced settings right now. So what we're looking at is a demo account in which I have connected two calendars, a demo kind of test work calendar and a personal calendar. And I've configured a calendar sync between personal to work. And so as a reminder, if you're not familiar with calendar sync, this feature specifically is really great for blocking out your time on a corporate work calendar in a secure way that protects your privacy, and ensuring that you appear busy when you have something else going on your personal calendar. That's the most common use case. We also have people that use it because they're embedded consultants and they have like 5 or 6 companies that they have email addresses and calendars with. But the common case, and the one that's available, the one that's well supported with our free plan, is this one where you're blocking out personal to work. You can configure it with lots of different settings. I'm not going to dwell on those today. But what I want to show you is just how that manifests both in Reclaim, in our planner view, and also how it appears on your corporate calendar and your personal calendar. So let's jump ahead to, say, next week. These are actually kind of real life blocks for me. My son Everett gets out of school sometime right around 3 o'clock. He lives around the corner. And so I usually try to walk up and pick him up with my wife. It doesn't work every time. Sometimes I have meetings, but you can see there that I've got that tentatively blocked out on my calendar each weekday. And then also my oldest has started fencing class, which is pretty wild. And so I usually try to take her to fencing in the afternoons on Mondays and Wednesdays. So this is kind of like what my real world schedule looks like. And in Reclaim, you can see it's showing both work-related events and personal-related events. But if we go look at my work calendar, we're seeing a kind of different picture. I've worked a lot with Henry. Of course, he's my co-founder, and Elizabeth. I don't mind them or you knowing that I'm picking my kid up or going to fencing, but maybe I don't want that information available to every single person I work with. And so what you can see here is calendar sync in effect, blocking out the time, but in an opaque way. And one of the first little quick tips I'm going to give you is if you haven't installed our add-on, it's a wonderful way for you to see this information. And if you're wondering, like, gosh, what was that personal commitment? What am I obligated to do later today? This add-on's a great way, if you're in Google Calendar, to see it. You just click right there and we will show you the title and other details right in line. And so I can see that I'm picking up Everett or that I'm going to fencing on these different days without exposing the information to my corporate calendar. Reclaim goes one better and actually intelligently merges them so that you don't kind of see 2 different events. It knows you don't need to see personal commitment. So really nice feature. We also have partnered with 2 other calendar apps, Fantastical and VimCal, if you've ever heard of those or are interested in those. And that will do the same kind of thing where it'll blend these things together. And we hope to kind of keep that going with other calendar vendors and perhaps even in our own calendar app in the future if we were to build one. That's a bit of a teaser for some topics that Henry might be speaking to. Okay. So jumping into the rest of the setup. So we've got a lunch habit, which is just kind of this flexible potential hold on my calendar. And then lastly, I want to show you that I also have this focus time feature enabled. This is a wildly popular feature we launched just a few months ago. And I've configured it to be reactive in nature. And the reason for that is I want to be available for meetings. I love meeting with customers. I'm here talking to all of you. I do lots of meetings with customers every week. And so I don't want my calendar to just be totally chock full of busy events. And so what I've said here is once I'm like below 5 hours in a day, then you can block it out. In the real world, I usually dial that back down a little less. But for this demo, it works well at 5 hours. And so what that means is any given day of the week, as long as I have 5 or more hours of free time, focus isn't activating. It's not doing anything because I have plenty of free time. So let's see this in action and see what actually happens here. So let's imagine that I want to share a calendar link with a customer. And I say to the customer, go ahead and book some time with me. Little teaser here. You might be noticing some cool colors and a logo here. This is a new feature we launched a few weeks ago that allows you to customize the branding of your scheduling link page. So if you haven't seen that before, that's live. And let's just imagine that that customer came over here and looked at my schedule and said, I see there's some preferred times, but honestly, 11:30 is really what works best for the customer. So they go ahead and they book it, and I'm booking this as Hal. So let me just Bob customer, let's stick Bob at example.com. I'm going to go ahead and book that meeting. And what we're going to see happen is because the customer picked a time that wasn't my preferred time, that's the reason for that is technically I really in an ideal world like to have lunch at 12 o'clock. And that's why I didn't put the little green dot on there because tentatively I could have lunch there, but it is flexible. Reclaim is indicating that it's flexible with this little lunch free indicator, and that's some of the settings you can do with lunch. But look at that. Right after the meeting was scheduled, lunch adapted. Lunch got busy. It's no longer free on my calendar, so hopefully no one else books time there. And then the rest of my day snapped, kind of like a circuit breaker, protects your electrical system from overloading. Focus time and lunch jumped into action and prevented me from getting any more meetings on that day. Now let's see what happens if I were to book a different meeting, say on Tuesday instead of Monday. Now keep in mind, Maggie doesn't have fencing class on Tuesdays, only on Mondays and Wednesdays. So if someone were to book time with me on that day at the same time, they would see the same experience, to them. Oops, I didn't put in Bob customer, but that's okay. And so we're going to see this meeting schedule and we're going to see lunch move, but we're not going to see focus time activate because I have a little more flexibility on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So only lunch will adapt. And in fact, I bet lunch, I forget exactly what my habit settings were configured as, but I bet lunch will not shift over to even be blocked out. You can see here, it's still got this free emoji. By the way, if you don't like these emojis, you are welcome to turn them off. It's in our settings. We think they're pretty handy, especially in Google Calendar, because free events don't have any visual distinction from busy events, other than if you click closely and look for the details here. But they're really important if your coworkers are trying to find time to meet with you, because look at this, when you do find a time, that lunch event, even though it moved, Reclaim knows I still have a little bit of time to get my lunch later in the day. So no one else can see it yet, but they definitely can see that Monday one and they can see all those focus times. So they're going to be heavily discouraged from meeting with me for internal meetings as well as external meetings. So that is a great way, hopefully, for you all to kind of just like refresh yourself. And if you're using some features, but not other features, to get your arms around how scheduling links and focus and habits and calendar sync and travel time can all work in concert to manage your schedule proactively and prevent you from getting overbooked. but also making it of you available for more meetings, right? These flexible blocks here are actually offering up more time to my coworkers if they're looking at my availability, up to a limit. And that's kind of the spirit of Reclaim. It's acting like a good assistant would, which is recognizing that you're trying to, usually, most of you are trying to balance the need to be available to collaborate with customers and coworkers, and also have time to get your work done. So, okay, that was a starting demo. Henry, is there anything that I missed or that you would want to cover here?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Okay, so our first question came in about habits that I want to cover. And so we've got a question. I've got roughly 50 habits that are working well, but if I need to edit a majority of them, it's quite difficult as to when I edit a habit, it resets the page. And when I save, I have to dig through where I was last. It's quite frustrating that when I need to edit a series of habits. Yeah, I'll be straight with you, Jesse. That is a lot more habits than our typical customer, and there's no judgment on that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think what you're experiencing is a recognition that we haven't prioritized the user experience for someone with that many habits, and we can do a better job of that. So I appreciate the feedback. We're going to take that back to the team and see if we can just kind of hold the state and make it a little more convenient there. I am curious, though, if you want to drop a follow-up or follow up with us in the support chat. I'd be really interested to learn how many of those habits you want to have as like distinct time blocks on your calendar versus habits that might be things that could be sort of grouped together in like one time block, like say maybe a habit called morning routine, and then you have a checklist of recurring things within that are things you want to get done, or maybe a weekend habit called home maintenance, and then there's quarterly things like replace the air filters, and monthly things. I should not riff on home maintenance monthly and quarterly schedules. Henry, you can help out if you got better ideas here, but air filters I know because I did that yesterday for my home. So yeah, I'm just curious, Jesse, kind of the use case. We'd love to learn more about that. That gets to some roadmap topics we're going to talk about in the future, because one of the tensions we see and hear from our customers is kind of when there's value in having fine-grained, fine or medium-grained time blocks, and when when it's actually kind of counterproductive or overwhelming, and it can make some of the management a little more tricky. Okay.
Yeah, Jesse just dropped in some extra context. I think this is actually a good topic to just pause on briefly, like, because I think we're talking a little bit about futures here. It sounds like the use case is there are specific customers that Jesse wants to spend time with, right? So there's a habit for customer A and a habit for customer B, and so on up to, it sounds like 50 plus customers. And totally makes sense that you'd want to have reminders to sync with particular people instead of a general account management block that you then have to go like survey a list of customers. But it sounds like potentially a way we could sort of trim down the number of habits that you're dealing with and maybe give you a delightful experience there would be if you did have a general account management habit, but then maybe there were a list that Reclaim was keeping track of tasks or recurring sort of, people or topics that you want to spend time on. And during that block, we could pull up and say, hey, touch base with these 5 customers today, or touch base with this customer today. So yeah, definitely seems kind of in the realm of what we've been thinking about for tasks and also for habits and focus time.
We do have a couple questions that kind of intersect from Robert and Mohammed on focus time, if we want to take a look at that real quick. Mohammed asked, how is focus time and tasks supposed to be managed? Because as a student, ideally, I want to spend focus time studying, which is a habit, and finishing assignments, which are tasks. And then Robert asked, I love focus time, but I wish there was a way to integrate tasks into them easier, where focus time is a block, but inside of it are tasks. So maybe we can talk a little bit to that.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say for Mohammed is focus is a very specific general feature that is designed to put blocks down on the calendar, both to remind you to focus on what matters most to you, or on work-related activities, and so in your case, student-related activities, and and it is by design not meant to be hyper specific around certain assignments or certain courses to study for. It is something that's kind of meant to be an easy button for your average Reclaim user to come in and protect their schedule from getting overloaded. So that may or may not be the most appropriate feature for you. It sounds like you're looking for a little more precision in your scheduling. And so what you might want to do, and you even said it yourself, is focus which is a habit. Technically, focus is a kind of its own dedicated feature separate from habits. Habits are where you can be slightly more precise. You can make a habit. I don't even know if we still offer the focus habit, Henry, since we launched Focus. Do we still have that one on here? Let's see. Yeah, we do still have a habit called, oh no, it's yeah, we do still have a habit called focus time. So you can make a habit called focus time that is different from the actual focus feature. I recognize that's can be a little confusing to get your mental model around that. The way to think about habits is they're kind of between precise tasks of like I need to check this unit of work off and say focus, which is generally block out my calendar. They allow you to express more precision in recurring time blocks on your calendar. So, in your case, you might not even want to call it focus time. You might want to call it study time. And, maybe you want to do it on Saturdays and Sundays as well. And maybe it follows your scheduling hours. Maybe you've even created some custom scheduling hours like schoolwork, or maybe you just want to say it's one-off hours and you can customize it here. Might say I'm an afternoon person, and so 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. is typically when I want to do it. Except actually, now that I think about it, I want to wrap up on Friday nights a little sooner, so I can enjoy my Friday night. You can customize all sorts of things about how it's scheduled, the duration for how it's scheduled, the recurrence and whatnot. And that might be a better model for you, where you create a habit that does specific blocks for focus time. And then separately, you use our task feature for specific assignments. And there you can express due dates and scheduling windows and whatnot. So I would just say for your use case, that might be more appropriate today. Our focus feature works in concert with habits and tasks, though. I do want to call that out. And that was something that Robert brought up, although we have more to say about that because we're thinking about making this, I think, a little more just low friction and easier to use is maybe the best way to say it right now. But our focus feature, it does understand other work-related habits and tasks, and even manually created focus time that is on the calendar. And the best way to see that and understand that is to see it in action. And so, for example, I could go ahead and say, let me think about how I want to do this. I think if I do it like this, if I go ahead and say, I'm going to be doing some focus and I'm just creating this focus event all by myself, this using Google Calendar's dedicated focus feature. Not all of you have this, by the way. If you don't see this option, that's because you're not on the right edition of Google Workspace, their business plan. But if I go ahead and schedule this focus time, what I've done is I've told my calendar, and therefore Reclaim, that I'm actually going to get up early. And for 90 minutes, I'm going to do a lot more focus, not the regular plan of 8 a.m. I could have dragged that one as well. There's nothing wrong with doing that either. But what you will see is that Reclaim's going to recognize that, oh, that's extra focus time, and we don't necessarily need all of that. And actually, we don't even need to protect your schedule as much, because my goal is when I have 5 hours or less of focus time a day, but it's now seeing that I'm going to do 90 minutes. I'm basically starting my workday an hour early. And so I'm not hitting that threshold. And so it's removing all that defense in my calendar. So that's one way you can do that. I'm going to get rid of that so that we can get back to where we were. The other thing to note is that you can also declare tasks, and tasks are part of focus if they're working tasks. That's important. Personal tasks won't count towards your focus goal. So let's just say I need to spend a couple hours writing a report, and I want to do it sometime starting Monday, and it's due at the end of the day. And so I go ahead and create that report. What we're going to see here momentarily on Google Calendar is that the focus time was actually replaced with write report. So it's still blocked and defended, but now instead of being generic focus time, there's specific block that's all about getting that report written. So Robert, that's our immediate answer to your question today. Here's the thing though. We think that often, and we've heard from other customers, and we're interested in hearing from you all, what we've heard is that often people don't work this way, where it's like, 9 a.m. on the dot, I need to now write the report. And whatever I was doing beforehand has to drop. Tasks sometimes go over schedule. Sometimes they get done faster than you expect. Sometimes people send you a message and add new things that weren't even planned. And so what we think might make sense in the near future is when you have focus time or even just open blocks of time that are during your working hours, we could bring a prompt up and say, hey, we see that you have said you need to write a report. Maybe you have these habits, per Jesse's use case around account management. You need to check in. It looks like right now you need to check in with these 3 customers because it's been a while since you've talked to them. And oh, by the way, we checked Slack and you have 2 reminders over there, and you have 3 starred emails in Gmail, and we kind of pull it all together and give you a choice of contextually relevant things to pursue. We think that might be a more delightful experience, and we are working towards some prototypes on that. And we hope to bring that to the community pretty soon. So yeah, that's a little bit of where we are today and where we're going. Any final remarks on this, Elizabeth or Henry?
No, sums it up well.
Okay, great. And it does sound like some folks are asking, like, can we do some onboarding calls and whatnot? We do have a process for that. So yeah, reach out to our support chat or email, as Elizabeth mentioned. We love to get on the call and get you situated as best as you can. And we're always happy to do team sessions as well. That usually works pretty well because then everyone can kind of contextually start to understand, oh, that's what that funny looking, bento box means to my coworker now. So yeah, great. Well, now let's pivot over to a new feature we launched very recently. If any of you are traveling, maybe right now, or you're traveling soon, I would recommend that you head on over, if you haven't seen it yet, to Settings, Hours, and take note of this new feature. I'm going to put the disclaimer out right away. This is the beginning of this feature, not the end. We wanted to get the MVP out to all of you as fast as possible because we know people really struggle with scheduling when they're in transit to other parts of the world in different time zones. So this was the first cut of it. There's a lot more we can do. For example, you can now, or in the future, we are hoping that we will like send you a message and nudge you maybe over Slack or an email or right inside the app to say like, oh, we see that you're flying from the West Coast of the US to the East Coast of the US. And we really think you should probably confirm that you're going to be on that East Coast time zone for these days. Those are the kinds of nudges that can make this even easier and more delightful, but let's see it in action. I also want to just report a small little improvement, but we improved our time zone picker in the last couple of weeks, both here as well as in the scheduling links experience for people you share your links to. It's a subtle thing, but it's really nice and important. Turns out time zone pickers are very difficult, but now we will show you kind of the more relevant time zone. For example, if I type PST, you'll see it understands that that means probably Pacific time. But if I type PDT, or actually, is it MDT? You can see, there's other time zones. Again, whether I'm in mountain, we're showing as mountain time or Pacific time, and often people mix up the daylight and the standard times, and so we're trying to make that a lot easier for you. But also, you might live in a place that doesn't even honor daylight savings time. So let me show you what Phoenix looks like. So here we're clarifying Phoenix is always in Mountain Standard Time. So there's no confusion about any of this. The search works a lot better. And so hopefully you're getting a better experience with the time zone picker, and your customers and clients and friends who are using your scheduling links are as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that I'm going to New York. and I'm going to be doing that next week up through Saturday. So all next week, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And what we're going to see is that all of Reclaim will adapt its scheduling that following week. Look, it already did it. It's so snappy. And so now in Pacific time, my lunch has moved, but of course, in New York time, that's the right time. Similarly, my tasks have moved. My scheduling hours will have changed. Notice though that my focus time actually got removed because my working hours are different on this day now relative to my obligations to my family. And so the focus time got removed, although it would re-add if I take a bunch of customer meetings while I'm out in New York. Scheduling links will have changed. And so to show you that, really drive that home, look at this, look at the time. So looking at my available times from the West Coast perspective, I'm seeing much earlier times that week than I would the following week. And so that's the feature in action. Robert, thanks for the shout out to Phoenix. I don't know if you live there or maybe travel there, but yes, Phoenix is always a tough place to operate with on time zones and scheduling. Yeah, this is hopefully something that you all appreciate and take advantage of, and know that this is just the beginning of this feature, not the end. We think there's a lot more we can do around communicating to people, to you when we see signals that you might be in other parts of the world, but also to communicating to your coworkers that you're in a different place in the world. That's often equally important. And so we have a lot of ideas around what we can do there. Okay. Jesse asked a follow-up question I'll just address right now. Does the travel feature have a time defense, almost as if I'm out of the office? There's a lot loaded into that question, so you're welcome to follow up if I'm getting it wrong, but I'll start with the actual travel feature, add travel time before and after events. These blocks of time definitely mark you as unavailable. And so we can see that in action right here on my work calendar. Even though fencing isn't until 4:30, I'm probably not going to be getting meeting invites at 4 o'clock because the 30-minute travel time is being added beforehand. And so that's one of the basic capabilities of it. This feature also is flight aware. And so, for example, let's just say flight to JFK. If I go ahead and throw that on my calendar, our auto classification system should, I hope, automatically recognize that this is a flight. And therefore, instead of doing 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after, it will recognize that it needs probably closer to like 2 hours. We know sometimes internationally you might want like 3 or 4. We're not that smart yet, but we will do larger blocks of travel time beforehand and protect you. So that's one thing we do. Jesse, if you're asking more in the context of this travel feature I just demoed, I will note that there's some really tricky time zone stuff when you kind of go from one day in one time zone to another day in another time zone. There can be moments of overlap in theory. You could be traveling, one direction or the other on the international date line, or going a really long distance on a direct flight, and you could actually have overlaps, or you could have gaps where there's sort of no time in the middle. For any of that, what we would call like that slop, we automatically mark you as busy. We think that probably makes sense anyway, because you're probably going to be jet lagged all over the place. And so you are not going to likely get meetings on those moments of big scheduling transition, because we do mark you off as busy. If you wanted to, okay, so I'm also seeing Jesse is following up with travel time next week, and won't be doing office work as usual. So it'd be nice to tell Reclaim to basically pause scheduling. Absolutely. There's a few ways to do that. You could, actually I could do it right here. You could do an all-day event, and you could mark yourself just as busy. I mean, that's the simplest thing. If you are busy, Reclaim will treat you as busy, and it will schedule nothing during that time. And so you could just say, not working or out of the office, and Reclaim respects that. Sometimes people want to be seen as busy by their coworkers, but they do want their habits getting scheduled. In particular, if they're like personal in nature and they're taking time off work, but they're not, traveling and seeing sites. If you have a case like that, you can put in a little bit of text in the description, and we have docs on this as well. Elizabeth, maybe you can pull up the doc and just share it in there for folks. You can put in a little piece of text called Reclaim Free. Basically what it means, it's a little bit of a misnomer. It means free for solo time blocking, but busy for meetings. And so that can be another handy way to communicate that. So yeah, just take advantage of the calendar availability. That's the most basic answer, and protect your time that way. I will note a bit of an advanced feature I want to share, and that is this concept of priorities. And so by default, every meeting on your calendar that isn't scheduled by Reclaim gets a priority of critical, but you can override that. So here I have a recurring meeting every day called Go to Market Stand Up. And I have come over here into Reclaim and I've dropped its priority to high priority. What's neat about that is that it allows me to be selectively available depending on the context. And so let's take a look at this scheduling link, which is currently medium priority. And I'm going to go ahead and simulate what it would be like if someone were to try to book a meeting with me. Now, keep in mind, it's 5 a.m. Normally, it's at apologies, let me get myself oriented, 8:30 a.m. On West Coast time, and I'm doing a scheduling link from West Coast time, and you'll see 8:30 is not offered here. We're recognizing that there's a go-to-market meeting, so it's not offering that up for that medium priority link. But let's imagine instead that I have an important customer meeting, I really want to spend time with them, and I'm willing to step out of that recurring meeting in that one on the for this situation. So this is a critical priority link. And if I go ahead and look at the times now, you will see that they intersect through 8:30. They're not recommended. They don't have the little green dot because we're trying to nudge people to other times that are good for my schedule, but they are possible. And so if you want more advanced, I know this isn't what you asked for, Jesse, but it's always good to share some of the more advanced capabilities. If you want advanced availability that's more contextually relevant, this is one of those capabilities that you can lean into, the priorities of your scheduling links, the priorities of the events on your calendar. And of course, it would be remiss to mention there's priorities on all of the objects in Reclaim, habits, tasks, smart meetings, and so on. Okay. Do we have any? Okay. Luigi asked a question. Should we jump into that one, Henry, or is there anything you wanted to add?
No, let's dive in. Let's dive into the question.
Okay, this one. Okay, Luigi, I have good news, bad news for you. So Luigi is asking about syncing with iCloud in the near future. Near is probably relative, but I'm guessing you'd like to see it sooner than later. I'm also going to guess, Luigi, that maybe your family, what we usually hear for iCloud support is, I use Google or Microsoft at work, but my family is all in on Apple and iCloud, and it would be really great to bring the two worlds together. And so, Luigi, you're already doing the thing I would recommend, but I'm going to reiterate it for others who might be in the same situation. Because we do not have native iCloud support, that what I mean by that is if you try to add an account, you can add Google or Outlook. You can't add, say, an Apple or iCloud account yet. That is something we hope to add down the road, but I'm going to be straight with you. Our kind of priority right now is really doing well with the corporate calendaring platforms because they're also both very popular for personal use as well. I use iCloud as well, Luigi, and so I get it, I understand, and I do wish we had a little more expanded support. So for now, if you want to support iCloud, the thing you can do, and the thing that Luigi's doing today, is you can import a calendar feed and paste, not import, subscribe from a URL, a calendar feed that is your iCloud calendar. iCloud does, I believe, let you have both what they call a private link as well as a public one. And you can save that here. And that works reasonably well. Once you've done that, you can come into Reclaim, you'll see it listed here, and you can mark it as a connected calendar. A connected calendar is basically the set of calendars that represent your true availability. So in this case, I have two connected calendars, my personal and my work, but you can even add sub calendars and other things you've subscribed to. So that's what you would do there. That is a read-only calendar. So you won't be able to schedule events to that calendar. And probably the bigger issue that you might have already noticed, Luigi, I think you mentioned it's not working super well. This is the problem with these subscriptions, is it's going through Google, and therefore it's at the mercy of how often Google refetches that calendar. And unfortunately, Google fetches it. As far as we can tell, they don't document any of this, but about once a day. And so what that means is if you put a personal event for your family or for you on iCloud, it could take up to a day before Reclaim's aware of it, and that means up to a day before Reclaim blocks it on your work calendar and whatnot. So it's less than ideal, but it is workable. Outlook, for what it's worth, also has a feature like this. It syncs about every 8 hours, so it's slightly better experience. And so maybe you're seeing a slightly better experience in your case, Luigi, because I think you said you're using Outlook. We do think we can do native at some point. When we added Outlook support, which, as a reminder, just came out earlier this year, we invested in abstracting out our calendar subsystem in our platform. And so we do think that it is the effort it took to get from just Google to Google and Outlook. It will be less effort to get to add a third or fourth calendar platform. So perhaps at some point in the medium term, we may be able to give you better answers there. Okay.
Awesome.
All
We
right.
are on 7 minutes left. We've got a couple
Okay.
questions here, sort of forward looking, if we want to pivot there. Robert asked, am I allowed to ask when we finally get a Reclaim app? And maybe that's a good segue here.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great question. And it also ties into one of the questions that came up from Asia around Monday support. Monday is something we've wanted to support for a while now, and we are going to be supporting it. I hear Asia mentioned using Zapier to flow that through, and we've seen other customers do that as well, where you sort of take something from Monday and then you shove it over to Todoist or ClickUp so that it can finally get into Reclaim. And I hear you that that's a probably pretty awkward experience. Our answer to both of those things, they may not sound like they're related, but they are related. We believe, as I mentioned earlier, that the way we're doing tasks today could probably be improved. And we think the way to do that is to not do as much precise scheduling and instead do more coarse-grained scheduling, like focus time or habits, and prompt you when it's time to do tasks. So what does this have to do with mobile and desktop apps and Monday? Well, the best way to prompt you is by having mobile apps and desktop apps that can bring native alerts directly to you and give you a nice native dedicated surface to resolve conflicts on your calendar and to choose what to decide to work on in the given workday when you have moments of focus. We believe that in doing that, it will also enable us to support a lot more integrations than we support today. Today, every integration we build, and we've built a lot of them, is a pretty costly endeavor because each integration has to do a very sophisticated two-way sync between Reclaim and that platform. And then also has to do a two-way sync between Reclaim and Google and Outlook, and it has to do a lot of complex scheduling. But if we instead can do something more that's like a just in time, using AI to pull contextually relevant tasks out of your wide array of systems of record for work, like Monday, then we think we can actually support a much wider palette of integrations. And then we can prompt you and say, oh, we found that in Monday you had this thing to do, in Gmail you had this starred thread, and in Slack you have these two reminders that you should go chase down. And we can bring it all to you in a nice native mobile and desktop application. So that's a sneak peek into where we're going with the roadmap. So stay tuned. Also, we know some people might not agree with some of the task scheduling we're doing. If you don't, we'd love to hear from you and hear kind of the parts that you do really value and like around the precise scheduling that we do today. But so far, we've talked to hundreds of customers about this, and we think this is probably the right way to go. Okay. Anything more, Henry?
I can speak a little bit to kind of some stuff that we're hoping is going to land in the coming weeks, and I think it goes to I'll show off maybe a few things that are a little further out that I think is in that realm of the high risk demo that Patrick mentioned earlier. But I'd say the high level is that we are kind of embarking on a couple of big quests for Reclaim over the coming, I'd say, months and probably years. But I think a lot of this stuff is going to be coming out in short order. The first is really around, as we've been developing Reclaim, I think we've heard from customers and heard from users that they want to be able to do more with the calendar that Reclaim offers. So obviously we integrate really deeply with Google Calendar, we integrate really deeply with Outlook, but there are lots of cases where you're using Reclaim either in the planner or in our add-on or in other kind of forums where you want to be able to do sort of more what we'll call sort of normal calendar operations. And so one of the big things that we're working on right now is trying to bring deeper calendar functionality and a richer calendar feature set into Reclaim natively. And another kind of component of that will be coming in the future is an extension that can operate anywhere in your browser, as well as things like desktop and mobile, that will let you sort of interact with Reclaim, from anywhere. So the first kind of step on that journey is really kind of building out more of this kind of what we'll call sort of basic calendar functionality in Reclaim. And the couple of things that I'll show off there that are coming soon. If you're a user of our Slack integration today, you're probably familiar with some of the notifications that we send. I'll show you just quickly in case you're unfamiliar with those notifications and how they work. Let me pull up the app here. So these are the notifications we offer today. And you can see Slack Status Sync here. If you haven't used Slack Status Sync, it's a very neat way to keep your Slack presence updated with your calendar. And you can see here, we have a whole bunch of notifications that are very Reclaim specific. And this is sort of a good metaphor, I think, for the kind of work that we're going to be doing in the coming weeks and months, which is these are all notifications that are about Reclaim specific things like habits and tasks and travel time. Even these notifications around when an event I'm invited to, or when an event is created or updated, this actually isn't for all the events on your calendar. This is just for events that are being synced through a calendar sync. And so one of the things we're trying to do is actually bring more kind of standard notifications into Slack and into email. So think I'll show an example of the one that we're doing. Whoops. I'll show an example of the one that we're doing for updates. So basically, when you get updated on an event, when an event is about to start, when an event is being updated or invited rather, we want to kind of give you the context of that event as well as whether there's any conflicts that need to be resolved. So this is just sort of us standardizing a lot of the notifications that are coming from Reclaim. In addition to that, we're going to be adding support for this thing we're calling Daily Digests. This is a mock of it, of how it'll kind of look in Slack. So these will be sort of agendas that show you what's on your docket for the day, what conflicts you have that might need to be resolved, so if there's two meetings that are overlapping each other, and then give you actions to go resolve those things. So that's kind of one area that we're doing a bunch of development on that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And this will cover sort of notifications over email and Slack. The other thing, and I know we're at time, but I'll just show it really quickly, is we are starting to build out more of this functionality natively into the planner. And this is a really early version of it. If you're familiar with staging environments, you can see this is on a branch in staging. So this is not in production yet. But what we're starting with is the ability for you to do things like create normal events and invite people to them. So I can go and, create a meeting called me and Patrick, and I can add Patrick to the meeting. And very soon go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, this gets to Robert's question. When are we going to be an app?
Yep.
We hear that a lot from everyone. We know tons of you are looking for this. This is the answer to that question.
Yep. I'm going to invite all the Patricks I know about here. And you can see here that, we're not yet showing you Patrick's availability. We're not yet showing you suggested times that might work if Patrick has a conflict. But we are starting to, these little green check marks actually mean that we know Patrick is available. So we're starting to intersect that availability and kind of understand kind of where meetings can happen. And you can kind of see how this could lead us down the road of better one-off meeting scheduling, where we can take Patrick's priorities into account. We can take all sorts of signals into account that traditional calendar systems don't. But the foundation is really all about, be leaning into more of being just a normal calendar UI that you can use to create events and manage them. The last little thing I'll show, just since we're here, is you can see this sidebar on the right, which is still very messy and still very early. There's a whole bunch of concepts in here that are new and that we're working on building out over the next few weeks. And we'll start to see some of it probably roll out into private betas fairly soon. The first is you're actually seeing recommendations here. And the recommendations right now are scoped basically just to buffers. So like where we think you're missing out on breaks. So you can see here, there's a little prompt that says like, hey, you don't have a post-meeting buffer on your meeting after 1 p.m. So I can click this guy and it'll just like add a buffer for me. And then similarly, there are ways for you to resolve conflicts. I don't know if this one's actually going to work. I think it got a little out of sync. But you can basically see when there are conflicts on your calendar and have them get resolved. This also plays into another thing we're kind of building out, which is this thing we're calling Sandbox, where you can actually simulate changes on your calendar before they get applied. And so these are, you can almost think of this as like a staging environment for your calendar. So you're going in and you're making a whole bunch of changes to your week. You want to move this meeting over here, and you want to move this meeting, over here, and you want to maybe like move this meeting over here. And we're kind of logging all of those things as you're making them. And we're telling you which changes you've made before they actually get applied to the calendar. And as you go, we're actually pulling out recommendations, showing you basically like conflicts that you might have or buffers that need to be applied. So this is a really, really early project. We're not yet at the stage, obviously, where we're rolling this out to everyone, but hopefully it gives you a sense of kind of where we're going, which is more of an interactive experience where Reclaim's sort of coming to you with recommendations and allowing you to sort of simulate changes on your calendar and kind of do a little bit of like what if analysis on your calendar as you're sort of building out your work week. So lots of cool stuff coming in the next couple of weeks and in the next few months.
All right. Awesome. I know we're at time here. Thanks to everyone for taking the time out of Thursday to hang out with us. Thank you, Patrick and Henry. I mentioned in the chat, but today's webinar will be on our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. We post all our Founders Webinar ones there too. I'm also going to share our link for our October session so you can get that on the calendar now. It's already October almost, which is crazy. Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day, a great weekend ahead. Patrick, Henry, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.